Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 34 of The Last Admiral. We'll take off where we left off with the chapter entitled The March of Bublix, Leader of the Northern School. Alright. Fu had run and walked continuously for 2 complete days, scouring the Lu Sharon lands for his family and his people. He arrived at Centurio Domus with 136 of his people behind him. 80 of them were capable people of fighting age, while the remainder of their numbers were children and the elderly. Some islanders still lived in distant parts of the isle, but of those that lived on or near the estate, Fu had managed to assemble them all. Adeline met them at the front door just as the rain was beginning to fall. "What has happened?" "Miss," Fu said, "Wraith sent me here to gather my people, and to warn you of the danger that comes. Tonight, terrible creatures will attack us from the sea. We have always fled from them. They are the devils that we call the Bay Sioux. Wraith believes that we can help each other in defense of this place." "Lily," Adeline called back into the house behind her. "Yes," Lily replied with dread. "Get everyone up here now." Red-haired Lily then ran back into the mansion. Prone to excitement as she was, she ran about, shouting for help until Trick came running in from the stables. "What is it, Lily?" "We've got some trouble up front," she reported. "I'm not sure what kind." And there's my drawing of the Bay Sioux. Wretched monsters from the deep. Okay, calm down, get out back and find Diego. I'll see to Adeline. Trick recognized most of their visitors. Every one of their neighbors and then some were now standing outside of their front door. Fu was quick to fill them in on past events. "Well," Trick greeted, "everybody come on in. If you have livestock, hold them steady until we get all of the children inside. We've got plenty of room for them in the barn." Filing inside, they were all exhausted from the long journey across the pasture lands of the estate. They looked with wonder at the twin guardian lions that flanked the front walkway and the 4 stone pillars that held up the rounded roof of the entryway. No portion of the mansion could house them all at once, and so they rearranged the parlor, great room, and the ballroom to allow enough room for everyone to sleep. The wealth and grandeur of the residence was beyond their understanding, seemingly magical, wonderful, and unnatural to them simultaneously. Delightful smells of freshly baked bread and a hearty stew wafted through the house and helped to make things seem more familiar to them. Once everyone was safely inside, and they had stabled the animals, Fu and the elders met with Adeline and all the members of the household. "They will come tonight," Fu warned, "during the storm. They need the rain and the mist in order to survive on land." "What in the 9 hells is a Bay Sioux?" Lily asked. "They are gigantic, scaly demons from the sea that will eat us and steal our children. They can be killed, but when they fight them, many of us always die." "Well," Trick said thoughtfully, "then you have come to the right place. The mansion is a fortress in construction. We built its walls 3 feet thick of brick and stone. The welded window frames are tempered steel and shuttered with bestos wood that will not burn, and slate tiles cover the roof. Outside, the gardens are actually decorated earthworks, hills, ditches, and hedges that are defensible by only a few warriors. If the battle turns against us, then we can fall back inside of the mansion. And if they break in, then we can evacuate using the escape tunnel." And the footnote is 9 hells. Refers here to the 9 circles of suffering comprising hell in Dante Alighieri's 14th century poem Divine Comedy from the Wikipedia Inferno. And bestos wood is obviously a newly created word combining best with asbestos to imply the best type of wood. Okay. What about the livestock? Chief Lanu asked with concern. The barn is built like a mansion, Diego stated. It connects to the main house through an iron reinforced door in the basement. If they come against it, then we can move the animals into the cellar storage rooms and seal the inner door. If they break through that, then the mansion is already lost. If they break in, Trick planned, we'll just hold them back long enough for everyone to get into the escape tunnel. Lanu hefted his spear, thinking of the ordeal to come. That's not all that we can do, Trick said excitedly. We have better weapons and armor. Come with me to the armory. Unlocking the weapons room with a skeleton key, he revealed the lengthy room, securing enough weapons and supplies to equip a small army. We have swords, spears, and armor enough for every warrior here. Equip yourselves as you wish, and then we will plan our defense. Are we going to be all right? Lily asked, while twirling a sizable lock of hair between the fingers of her left hand. I don't know, Lily, Adeline replied, but we can all help. Everyone that can arm themselves must, including the teenagers, so let's see to it. Soon after, their wives and capable children joined the warriors. The armory was deep and vast, with a wide selection of weapons of all types and sizes. Most of the equipment was of Dragonian military design, but other, more exotic and foreign arms were present. The islanders rarely used armor and shields of metal, and they required instruction in their proper use. It was an education that they had precious little time for, but they were an intelligent people, and quick to learn and adapt. Diego, the carpenter and former veteran of Hispania's dismantled army, was invaluable in their fitting and education. They outfitted each warrior with a sword to match his or her physique, a spear, and a brace of dark Alfar javelins that were of similar design to the islanders' own. They also issued longbows and quivers of war arrows to the skilled archers. We must prepare the grounds, Diego instructed. We'll make barricades with the wagons, carts, and old lumber. Everyone younger than 12, Adeline directed, and older than 60, come with me. We are going upstairs to shutter all of the windows. We'll slide every bureau and bed against them, anything to keep them from getting into the house. Trick and Diego led the work details outside. Assembling barricades across every perceived weakness, they drove 1,000 javelins into the ground around the perimeter for quick use. Clearing the basement to make room for the animals, only Trick's warhorse, Big Ben, remained in his paddock. The storm clouds deepened as the night began to fall, and the rain worsened. Lighting bonfires with difficulty inside of their chosen perimeter, they produced badly needed light and comforted the uneasy. The newly assembled family then began their fearful watch, as every clap of thunder magnified their dread, and the warriors peered outward from beneath soaked hoods or looked towards the sea through small cracks in the windows of the upper floors. Soon the demons of the deep, the Bay Sioux, would come for the children. Bublix, leader of the northern school. The summer rains fell heavily upon the surface of the sea. Warm, drenching raindrops moved swiftly across the island, and a dense fog of tropical mist filled air, drifted overland along with it. To every living creature capable of fear, it was also the time when the Bay Sioux came ashore to hunt. It was a time of hiding and survival's flight. It was a night of slimy, crawling terror. Capture, feast, and destroy. To reap the land for flesh was their greatest desire. Beneath the waves, they schooled themselves into a frenzy of chaos. Any fools close enough to watch the waves would see deep crimson flashes beneath them, much like giant brilliantly colored rainbow trout rising to the fly. Bublix led them all, his heart filled with malice and anger caused by the pain of his burns. His eye stalks rose above the waves of the shallows and examined the shore intently. He was mighty, but he was also wise, and he knew how cunning and dangerous the land dwellers could be. The eastern beaches appeared to be deserted. To the south, the falls of Lake Volca careened noisily over the cliffs and into the ocean. Northward, breakwaters crashed over the shoals and the large rocky outcroppings that littered the north shores of Shang-Sun. Bublix clicked his mandibles expectantly. He was excited that they had emerged from the sea in such an advantageous place. The gently sloping sandy beach before them was closest to the defiler's lands, and it was there he hoped to fulfill his own long dreamed of revenge. A few human dwellings were visible, but no signs of life were apparent. Had they been forewarned, he thought? No matter. The storm would allow them to ravage the land and exact their revenge. His body flashed more brightly, signaling the march. Inch by inch they swam and crawled ashore. First, their gigantic arachnid heads rose red and black from the water, with mandibles a foot or more in length, even and wickedly curved. Then their great finned bodies, fish-like and slug-like as one, with two long scaly arms with pincers and legs, like two great octopus arms that flowed and stepped, both squid-like and bipedal. By the dozens they emerged, dripping and seaweed-covered, until over 1,000 monsters were advancing over the beach, across the rolling dunes, and then scaling the rocky ledges to the pasture lands of the estate. Small creatures shrank away from them, fleeing or burrowing or flying away as they could. Like an insect swarm, Bublix led them through every farming hut, shed, and barn, destroying every structure in turn, and devouring every creature too slow or too unfortunate to escape. His rage grew as he realized that his prey had all fled and that his glass jars remained empty. Bending low, he smelled the earth, and soon, despite the rain, he realized where they had all gone. They flee towards the nest of the defiler. Follow me. We march toward the Twin Peaks, smash his dwellings, rend them, kill his school, and bring their babies to me. Fu's mother, Paya, was the first one to see them from the highest balcony of the mansion. Outlined in terrifying silhouette by lightning's flashes, they clawed at the earth and at the sky. Huge and hideous even in the darkness, their numbers seemed endless. They come, she shouted. They are crawling from the sea, east from the sea. Moving back inside, she closed the balcony door and barred it. Drawing the curtains closed, Hua helped her tilt the bed against it. Running downstairs, they spread the alarm. The Bei Su are coming. Many hundreds. To arms, Trick commanded. Adeline, I'll help the fighters outside, and if we get cut off from you, then bar the doors against us. Nodding, she placed her hand upon his shoulder. You're a good man, Trick. May I prove it so? Heavy rains drenched the 60 defenders holding their positions behind flower beds, goldfish ponds, and ingeniously laid rock walls and hedges that, although beautiful on a summer day, were fully functional, defensive earthworks. Fu and the younger warriors had never seen the Bei Su, and most believed that they were merely superstition. No more. Now the terrors of childhood tales were crawling toward them, as real as life and death could ever be. Remember who we are, Fu said to them. We are the people, the last of our tribe. Fight as you have never fought before. Work together and use your spears. Avoid the dark mist that comes from them, for it is poison. Bublix loomed taller than the rest, a gigantic despot feared by all his underlings and subservient only to none neglect his king. Screeching horribly into the night air, his head rearing back as his eye stalks reached toward the sky, his mandibles parted wide in anticipation of the taste of human flesh. Here is the defiler's shell, he roared. The hour of our revenge has come. Swarm them, destroy them, and let no living thing escape. His worm-like arms reached outward then, their pinches opening wide. Northern School, lead the attack. Southern School, circle them and charge from the rear. Onward, Western School, flank from the north. Eastern School, assault from the south. The schools divided, crawling apart. They fanned out across the outlying fields and surrounded the mansion. Bublix advanced behind his army, his 7 priestly jawbearers slithering with him. Soon they would fulfill the Nameless One's command for 7 souls. The rains seemed to fall harder as the diabolic horde closed in, filling the air with its rushing sounds, so normally comforting, but then broken by the monster's sinister clicks and churrs. Their sounds seemed to grow hungrily, expectantly, ever closer. To the people they were doom incarnate. The darkness and the rain were against them, as they had only the light of a few struggling bonfires to see by. The occasional flash of lightning and the grayish light beneath the storm clouds was all that revealed the battlefield to them. Fu and his father crouched low with 10 strong warriors, behind the thick hedge maze that stood between them and the outlying pasturelands beyond them. They heard the Besu and felt their approach long before they saw them. Each of them had thrust a brace of javelins into the ground before themselves and held one at the ready. "Hold!" Lanu commanded. "Stand firm. Wait for them to reach the barrier." Standing beside their chief, resolved to fight and yet terrified to the edge of reason, they searched the dark expectantly. The waiting was always the hardest part, to fight or fly. Its call demanded action, and summon them it did. Their front was a hedgerow about 300 feet in length, and 6 or 7 feet high that wrapped around the mansion's front carriage lane and courtyard, guarding the front entryway. The remainder of the tribe fanned outward evenly around the perimeter of the estate, between the main buildings and the gardens. Chief Lanu's line was the first to engage. The Besu smelled their victims and knew that they lay just beyond the vegetation between them. Initially, they tried to burst through the shrubs that appeared so flimsy and insignificant, but hedges are much more tenacious and deeply rooted than they appear. Smashing into the barrier, the first wave of caretakers was confounded. "Now!" Lanu cried, and 12 islanders hurled their barbs, some striking flesh while others were lost in the darkness. The Besu then bent low and began to dig and rend the earth, intent upon uprooting the obstacle. Their strength was terrible to behold, and their viciousness fed their fury. "Again!" Lanu called out. Hurling their javelins repeatedly, they dared to stand as the horde pressed in. Lanu was a mountain of a man, thick, wider, and more powerful than any other warrior of his tribe was. He remembered his father, who was once a man stronger still. It was now his job and his fate to lead. And that's where we'll leave off, the top of page 287. Sorry, we're in the middle of battle, but it's a long one. It's going to take a couple readings to get through it. I hope you enjoyed this episode and the terror of the Besu. Thank you and have a great night.